right, so then number 7, 8, and 9, we're doing the same thing we just did, only now they made it look a whole lot more complicated because they put all those variables in there. So thinking about when we had the odd exponents, we had to factor out one. If it was even, we left it alone because it was already a perfect square. So on this first one, I'm going to start with the 4x, and I've got to simplify the square root of 27u cubed. 27 is not a perfect square, so I factor it. 9 times 3. U cubed has an odd exponent, so I'm also going to factor that. U squared times u. Now I'm going to take out my perfect squares. So, square root of 9 is 3. The square root of u squared is just a u. Half of 2 is 1, so u to the first, right? So if I take out a 3u, I'm going to multiply it by what's in front. I'm going to get 12ux square root of 3u. Now I got to do the other side. I got a minus u in front. I'm going to simplify the square root of 75ux squared. 75 is not a perfect square. I can factor that into 25 times 3. The u, although it's not a perfect square, there's nothing I can do with it, so I'm going to leave that as a plain u. And then the x squared is a perfect square because it has an even exponent, so I leave it as x squared because I'm going to take the square root of that one. So taking out my perfect squares. Square root of 25 is 5. The square root of the x squared is an x. So putting this, I'm going to have minus 5. I'm going to write it as ux because I wrote this side as ux and we want them to be like terms. Square root of 3u. If I did everything correctly, everything behind the leading coefficient should be exactly the same. So when I'm doing adding and subtracting, they have to be like terms. They are. I'm just going to do the 12 minus the 5, which gives me 7. So 7ux square root of 3u is what my answer is going to look like when I subtract those. So if you come up and they're not like terms, you probably made mistakes somewhere and you're simplifying, go back and check your work because you should be able to add or subtract them by the time you're done, which means everything after the front number should be exactly the same. Number 8 then, we've got a w squared in front. We've got to simplify the square root of 8wy squared. What should we do with the 8? 4 times 2. Nothing we can do with the w, and we don't want to do anything with the y squared yet, since it's even. So taking out our perfect squares, what can I take out of there? 2. A 2 and a y. And a y. So I'm going to have 2w squared y square root of 2w. Now if you put yw squared, it's okay just as long as you're consistent. Normally we put them alphabetically so we recognize our like terms. Then we have minus 4y, and we want to simplify the square root of 32w to the 5th. 32, how should we factor 32?
6 and 7. Wait.
16 times 2. 16 is the biggest perfect square that divides into 32. So although 4 would work, it's not the best choice. 16 times 2. How about the w to the 5th? W to the 4th times w. So taking out my perfect squares, I can take out
4 and a w
squared, right? Half of 4 is 2. So if I take that out, I'm going to have negative 16 w squared y square root of 2w. So I have 2w squared y squared of 2w minus 16w squared y squared of 2w. My answer then would be Exactly, negative 14w squared y square root of 2w. Number 9, simplifying as much as possible. So we've got a 6u in front. We need to simplify 18x to the 5th. What should we do with that? 18 is 9 times 2.
X to the 4th, times x.
X to the 4th times x is my x to the 5th. So taking out my perfect squares,
3 and x to the 6.
3 and x squared can come out, so I'm going to have
18x squared u.
square root of,
2x.
so 18x squared u square root of 2x, or if you put ux squared, it's the same thing, but we'll write it x squared u. So we have plus x squared, and we need to simplify the 8xu squared. What should I do with that?
4 and 2.
4 and 2, and that's probably all the factoring we can do because we can't do anything with the x, and the u squared is already even, so we like to leave that alone. Taking out our perfect squares, we can take out
U.
2 and a u, so we would have
2ux squared.
square root of
2x.
2x. So as long as you recognize that x squared u and ux squared are really the same thing, because we have the commutative property and we can switch them around. They are like terms, we can add them together, and so our answer would be
20ux squared square root of 2x.
20ux squared square root of 2x. Exactly. And the last 3 on this page have to do with multiplying square root expressions together.